Pokémon Contests are an optional minigame first introduced in Generation 3 with the release of Pokémon Ruby and Pokémon Sapphire. In each contest, 4 Pokémon show off their moves in the 5 categories of Coolness, Beauty, Cuteness, Smarts, and Toughness to earn Pokémon ribbons. At the beginning of each contest, there is a visual segment where the audience judges each Pokémon, the results of which are determined by this off-brand Magic the Gathering color wheel known as Contest Condition. Each of these contest stats can have a value from a minimum of 0 to a maximum of 255. When first met, most Pokémon will have a 0 in all their contest stats, with the exception being the cosplay Pikachu from Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. So how does one raise these stats? Snacks. In every Pokémon game where contest condition is a factor, the player can find an even smaller sub-minigame that involves tossing berries into a pot and seeing what dubiously flavored confections come out. In the Hoenn games, these stat-boosting sweets are known as Pokéblocks, whereas in Sinnoh they come in the form of Poffins. But not just any berry will do. The rarer the berry, the stronger the flavors, and the stronger the flavors, the stronger the Pokéblock. At least in theory. Every berry can be categorized into some combination of 5 flavors: spicy, dry, sweet, bitter, and sour, and these flavors correspond to the 5 contest types. Most berries have at least 1 flavor, some have 2, some detract from a flavor, and some contribute a lot more to a specific one. In addition, some berries have no flavor whatsoever. So how is a Pokéblock's flavor calculated? Well, like most things in Pokemon, it's an equation. First, the game adds all the flavor values of the berries added, and then multiplies the results by 10. Then, for every negative flavor added, the game subtracts 1 point from each of the 5 flavors. Finally, the game sets all flavors with a negative value to 0, and gives a multiplier based on how fast the berry blender got up to during the minigame. And this gives us each flavor of our Pokéblock. But this is only one of the important Pokéblock stats. The arguably more important other stat is the feel. Feel is a stat that each Pokéblock has that indicates how filling it is. Each Pokemon keeps track of a stat called Sheen. Sheen is a measure of how many Pokéblocks a Pokemon has eaten, as well as how many it could still eat. The more feel a Pokéblock has, the more it contributes to a Pokemon's Sheen. Unlike flavor where more is better, if a Pokemon hits a Sheen of 255, it will refuse to eat another block. The problem is, rare berries, in addition to having such high flavor, also have very high smoothness, which means Pokéblocks blended using rarer berries is going to have a higher feel, meaning your Pokemon won't be able to eat as many gourmet fruit cubes. Enter the Nutpea Berry. The Nutpea Berry, in addition to having the best name of anything in the Pokemon franchise, is one of 12 e-reader berries. As the name suggests, these berries are obtained from the player's father Norman after the corresponding card is scanned in via the Nintendo e-reader. These berries all share a tag number of 43, and only one of these berries can exist on a cartridge at any given time. If the player scans in a new e-reader berry, all existing berries of the first type will transform into the new kind. The Nutpea Berry has some unique features that players can leverage during berry blending, namely its lack of any particular flavor and unusually low smoothness of only 5. The intended use case for the Nutpea is clearly to bring down the average smoothness while not affecting any of the flavors already present, allowing for the player to fit more Pokéblocks into their limited Sheen capacity. With such little flavor and no in-battle effect, there's not really much else to be done with this strange little peanut. Or so you might think. Let's revisit the feel equation. Feel equals the average smoothness of all berries involved minus the number of players blending. That means if the berries have an average smoothness of 50 and there are 4 players at the berry blender, the resulting blocks will have a feel of 46. Simple enough. But what if you put in 4 Nutpea berries? Firstly, you can only do this if you're blending with friends. Not only will NPC trainers never use Nutpea berries, but they will actively avoid using the same kind of berry that the player does, and for good reason. Using 2 or more of the same berry will ruin the entire batch of Pokeblocks, creating black Pokeblocks, which are then assigned 3 random flavors with no regard to the berries used. With that in mind, let's return to the blender and make some peanut flavored trash. The average smoothness among 4 Nutpea berries is 5, and with 4 participants, this gets reduced to a feel of just 1. With 3 randomly assigned flavors, this is, in theory, the highest flavor to feel ratio a Pokeblock can achieve, somehow eclipsing blocks made with even the highest quality ingredients. Now that we have our garbage peanut butter blocks, what can we do with them? Feed them to our Pokemon, of course. Recall that each Pokemon starts with a 0 sheen and can eat up to 255 feel worth of blocks. This means that at 1 feel apiece, our Pokemon can eat as many as 254 of these things and still have room for 1 more block. Keeping in mind that each of these blocks has been assigned a tiny amount of 3 random flavors, we can get up to perfect contest stats in Generation 3 with just 1 berry. But before you go out and do this yourself, a word of warning. This method of getting perfect contest stats is slow. How slow? I streamed myself doing this entire process, twitch.tv/SirToastyT, and it was rough. Firstly, to get 254 blocks, you're going to need 64 Nutpea berries on each cartridge, as 4 blocks are made, 1 for each player. If you're familiar with Generation 3 games, you'll know that the battery installed in Ruby and Sapphire cartridges runs dry eventually, freezing time and preventing you from just growing more berries. You might think that you can then use the Emerald Battle Tower cloning glitch, but Pokemon Emerald doesn't have any e-reader support, and even the Japanese version can't scan in cards from Ruby and Sapphire's Battle E-Series, which is where these berry cards are from. There is a solution in the form of 1. Scan the Nutpea berry into each cartridge. 2. Fly to Petalburg. 3. Retrieve the berry from Norman. 4. Fly to Slateport, the closest city with a contest hall and by extension a berry blender. 5. Link up at the blender with 4 Game Boy Advance systems. 6. Blend the berries for 35 to 60 seconds depending how well you do. And then repeat this 64 times. I was able to use a cloning glitch exclusively found in the Japanese releases of Ruby and Sapphire to make 64 Nutpea berries in that game, but that still meant I had to scan in the berries for 3 other English cartridges. Real quick, a huge shout out to Toxicognath Hugs in my Twitch chat. She sent me the English Nutpea berry card, and this probably would never have happened without her help. Finally, after 12 hours of blending, sending, and eating 2 batches of 128 and 91 foul, tasteless, peanut buttery Pokeblocks, my Scizor was the coolest, most beautiful, cutest, smartest, toughest Pokemon around. So why do this? Well, I'm currently streaming Scizor going through all of the Pokemon generations collecting up ribbons, and because of the sheen limit, I wanted him to have perfect contest stats for both Generation 3 and Generation 4 contests, so that I can crush the opposition. It's also just a fun piece of gaming trivia that you can get these types of contest stats with only a single type of berry. Would I recommend this process? Probably not. For one, it requires a ton of hardware, including 4 Game Boy Advance systems, an e-reader, cards, and a 4-player game link cable. If you have the means, you can absolutely follow in my peanutty footsteps, but there are plenty of recipes out there that don't involve the e-reader at all. And honestly, you don't even need perfect contest stats to do pretty well at the Pokemon contest. As long as you're not the Sableye, I mean, wow.